For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Jesus is the greatest. I've been thinking more about this idea of goats, or the goat, capital G, capital O, capital A, capital T, what they call the greatest of all time. If you're paying attention at all, and you probably are, if you open any feed on your device lately, you're likely to see or have seen debates, discussions of the quote unquote GOAT, greatest of all time, whether that be in sports, a particular sport, or in other industries or entertainment. And I've been noticing this talk for over 10 years as I sit here talking in 2024. That kind of talk is big anymore. This idea of the GOAT. Who is the GOAT? Who is the greatest of all time? Right now, all these people, all these folks online and off are talking about, especially in the sport of basketball, who is the best we've ever seen do that for our entertainment in that league. There is this manufactured, or I might call it a fake debate out there about the GOAT of basketball. It's kind of been pushed in your face. Again, if you just turn on any social media or media. Is it somebody called Michael Jordan? Is he the GOAT of basketball? Or is it a person named LeBron James? Now, maybe you could throw other names in there like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain. I'm kind of out of the loop, but I believe those are still the main dudes that you'll hear discussed right up to this day, especially the first two names I mentioned there. Now, I'm known as being kind of fierce as I go against idol worship of Hollywood and all its entertainment, which includes sports or major or high level sports. Now, those are sports I once loved once upon a time. I'm not against playing or watching sports per se, but I know that once you consider these high level, widely consumed events, there's so much darkness and straight evil involved or mixed in with them. You cannot claim that it's just about sports. And some of us know that it isn't so. Some of us know that what we call professional sports are not of God. Now, these people on the fields and the courts, they can act pious and pray after the games, and they can mention the Lord as they hoist up the championship trophies all they like. But you cannot justify these competitions and all the trappings that come with by using the Bible. I mean, think about it. Who was the first competitor? Who is the first being that we know of who was and still is striving to be the best or the greatest? It's the devil. It's Satan, Lucifer, all the other names. Remember, I will be like the Most High. Can you dig that? That's what he said. Sounds like the modern sports athlete, doesn't it? It's so obvious you probably missed it. But all that being said, just from my eye test, and you add in the accolades, winning championship rings and all that, it's clearly Jordan who is the best basketball player I've ever seen. And I hadn't even been paying attention that closely for years and years now. But I'll still say that. As they say these days, it's not close. And there's a reason why a couple of decades past his retirement, the number or percentage of people who agree with that is so overwhelming. In the end, though, that stuff doesn't matter. It's just fluff. It's dissension and distraction. That's where people have their attention right now. They're not really thinking about important things. And I'm not saying that people are not taking care of their families and their business necessarily because they're talking on these things. And you can have your opinion as long as you keep these entertainments and these people in their proper place. You can watch it and then walk away from it, is what I'm saying. Because these people that you like so much, they don't know you. They do need you as fans to lift them up as little g gods. And of course, so that they can be well paid. Just keep that in mind. And if that's still how you spend your time and affections, but that's between you and God. But it is a distraction from loving the Lord with all your strength, mind, heart, all your being. It's keeping you from being fully focused, being sober and vigilant. You're, you're not really set on the Lord when you're deep into these sports. And you know it if you're honest. You cannot love your neighbor as yourself when the guy next to you at the Buffalo Wild Wings has got the other team's jersey on. That guy is your enemy in a way. And I know that's going too far for somebody. You think I'm off my rocker for putting it like that. You just don't want to examine what I'm saying. But see it like this. You like MJ, so LeBron is a sucker. You like Bron, so MJ wasn't as good as everybody says, and everybody he played with would be water boys in the 2020s. It's the contention, the hard feelings, they're going to be there. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. Well, you can't esteem your opponent and honor him because you're trying to beat him. You're trying to tomahawk dunk in his face. You're trying to dribble a circle around him so that he falls down and gets clowned by everybody that's watching. If you can see what I'm saying, you'll notice that more and more, that's what it's about. It's not so much about winning the game with honor and respecting your opponent still. It's more about embarrassing the other guy, making him look bad. This is a dangerous thing. You're going to pick that up from the performers and you're going to take it into your personal life. It's dangerous to be distracted in that way. But we can trace it, this GOAT thing, back before this basketball debate and the general use of that term or acronym GOAT in the culture. Now, I remember being a young man, and at that time, the entertainer called LL Cool J was one of the most popular rappers out there. He was talking about being the GOAT, greatest of all time in terms of rapping or hip hop. And I believe he got that from the boxer named Muhammad Ali, who would walk around saying, "I'm the greatest of all time." Now, you might have seen those clips going back to black and white days. Muhammad Ali was probably the first modern celebrity or so-called star using that term. So it gets shortened to GOAT. Greatest of all time gets shortened to GOAT now. So now we're talking about people in any industry, any entertainment being a GOAT, being the GOAT. And to me, you're saying the greatest of all time, that means it's a singular thing. If someone or something is the greatest of all time in whatever area, that cuts out everything and everyone else. But we've now muddied the water over the last decade plus. But to use this basketball debate, again, you might hear people say, well, Jordan is the best or the greatest of all time, but LeBron is the GOAT scorer. And somebody named Steph Curry is the GOAT shooter and those kind of things. So now there's many GOATs, not just one. You're mentioning multiple people. It's a confusion. There's GOATs of everything now. Mama, this is the GOAT Reuben Swiss and pastrami sandwich. This guy over here, he fixed my teeth so well. He's the GOAT dentist. You're not the GOAT now. You're a GOAT. I thought it was just one person or one thing. But the lost and perishing world now says there are many GOATs. That being the case, what does the term even mean now? I thought if you were the greatest, it means you stand alone. Now, honestly, it is one personal thing. Who is really the greatest of all time? Of course, it is the Lord Jesus himself. And you laugh at that if you will. You can picture little laughing emojis with tears popping out of it. But I know the truth about you. You're just not prepared to deal with the Christ. Today might be your day. I'm most sure that we're not going to see Jesus playing basketball, but if he did, you know he would be the best at it. If he was fixing sandwiches or fixing teeth or collecting our trash, he would do it more excellently than anyone else. Remember, the people who were alive at the time Jesus Christ was walking around in the flesh said, he does all things well. Some of you are going to mock what I'm saying here because it forces you to think of eternal things. You don't want to think about spiritual things and what's going to happen once you leave here. This earth, this life, this flesh. Bible says you're going one or two places finally. But no, you need to block that. You need to block that kind of talk. But your eye rolling is not going to stop what's coming. For now, you can be comfortable. God's allowing you time to watch all these flawed men and women perform their exploits before you. And you then can be impressed by what they do. And at the same time, you can begin to pick them apart professionally and even in their personal lives. That's what these sports idols are here for. They're here to engage you, to influence how you think, to distract you, sell you things, products, ultimately to deceive you. And when it's all over for you, suddenly the greatest football running back or greatest painter or greatest actor of all time stuff is going to be so far from your thoughts, it's going to be a dot back there. All that stuff is not going to matter when you realize for sure that you're either headed to glory, to be consistently and constantly amazed by the Father and the Son forever, or to the lake of fire crying out for a drop of water, wanting the Lord to acknowledge you and get you out of there. That place reserved for the devil and his angels. According to the Bible, we were never meant to be in that latter place. We choose to be there knowingly and or willingly. And understand, I don't enjoy talking about this, except in that it is the Lord's plan, and I'm going to glory in what he's done and is doing. My opinion is trash if it goes against him. But either way, you're not going to care how Jordan leaped in the air. You're not going to care how powerfully that LeBron can dunk. You're just not. I don't believe you're going to be discussing these things, whichever way you're going to go. For now, you may get some kind of knowledge or encouragement or comfort or fellowship from your sports idolatry. But ultimately, if it doesn't matter eternally, it doesn't matter right now. I try to keep that viewpoint. It simplifies a lot of things for me. I look to God for all things best as I can. And within that, I love my neighbor. And my closest neighbors are my wife and children. Lay down my life for them. God is looking at me. I'm shaping their future. I'm guiding them for the good or for the ill. God is observing me, how I do all that, how my attitude is as I'm giving myself to them. Keeping the main thing makes how I spend my time and strength more fruitful. But that's boring to most people. They like the debate and getting hostile over the world's idols and what side they fall on. This is election season right now, so that's included in what I'm talking about too. They like to argue about whether basketball players 20 and 30 years ago could be good if they got transported to our time. I mean, who really cares? It's appointed a man wants to die, and after that, the judgment. When you're at the white throne of judgment with the rest of us, you're not going to care about who could shoot that three-pointer. And to shift gears a little bit, there's definitely a reason why this goat talk is so prevalent right now. We talk about goats and sheep from time to time. The sheep being separated from the goats. The sheep representing those of us who are believers. And most people you ever talk to don't want to be considered a sheep. That's weak to them. Being a sheep is an insult to lost people. And they're just wrong about that. In the world's eyes, that's what this is. They want to be the goat or a goat. They want to be great or at least considered as great. It's just more pride. And we know that there is nowhere in the Bible that has the Lord speaking or thinking well of pride. You might be able to take pride in what the Lord can do and what Jesus does. Other than that, there's nowhere that you can point to where God is okay with pride. This ethnic pride, sodomite pride, this feminist or women strong pride, this sports acumen pride. It's not good. It's leading to something bad for you because you're concentrating on flesh. You're worshiping the creature more than the creator. That's not just talking about animals in the forest. It's talking about other people. You worship these athletes and actors. Of course, you're not going to call it that. You're going to deny that. But haven't you heard some of these folks who like LeBron call him our king? Yes, they are out here using that phrase or title. Don't talk badly of our king because he's the GOAT. You might be saying, well, you just said you grew up liking Jordan. I'm not letting him off the hook either because they call Jordan Black Jesus. That's blasphemous as well. That makes me angry when I hear people call on that. It's one of the things that got me away from all this stuff. Realizing what that title is, what that nickname really is about. Or the Curry guy. One of his nicknames, I think, is Threesus, because he can shoot 3-pointers. It's Threesus. That's a play on Jesus' name. It's just more mockery. If these men were honorable, that is, if they did love the Lord, they will rebuke these nicknames, but they won't. They're prideful, which is why they have the platforms and positions they have. I mean, what are goats anyway? I mean, their personality. Goats are headstrong. Goats are stubborn. A goat, he's going to go his own way. A goat is not going to listen to or obey authority. Goats think they're the toughest and most clever things around, but they don't even know how to get back home. That's why you usually see goats on the leash. I'm not saying I've observed and studied every goat that's ever lived or something, but that is their general tendency. You tell me if I'm wrong, you farmers and you herdsmen out there. They're going to do what they want to do. They're going to be who they want to be. That describes a lot of people, doesn't it? And when we're talking about people who are spiritually goats, as is described by the Bible, the Lord can step over there while these folks play that out. Step aside, God. I got this. The enemy has us focus on these mindsets or ways of thinking. And we get influenced to turn good to evil and evil to good. It's like we're looking at something and we can't see it for what it really is. One example I've probably used before on this platform is profanity, or what we might call curse words. Now, people argue with me about that and they say, well, technically, there's no such thing as curse words. A curse word is only a curse word because people say it's a curse word, and that changes with the times. But there is some truth to that, but you're making my point for me. People generally agree that it is that they are curse words or profanity. So that's what it is in whatever time you're regarding. And you use the quote unquote curse words, not because you're trying to be encouraging. You're not using these particular words because you're happy or content. You use what we call curse words or profanity because you want to shock, offend, intimidate, hurt somebody, isn't it? Tell me if I'm wrong. Now, you might be saying, I use them out of joy or excitement. Well, even then, I'll say, at best, you need a wider vocabulary. And at worst, you're lying. And even if you got some great gift or something, and you say those certain words because you're thankful over the gift or happy about it, you know in your heart that it's still unbecoming. It's a rebellion. It's a picture of what's in your heart. Now, a number of those words you can find in the King James Bible, and you're going to snicker under your breath when you see them in the Bible. That's what an argument about this is only profanity because we're conditioned to call it profanity comes in. So people are willfully ignorant about this. They've been influenced over a long time to turn good Bible words into curse words. Even by the very same people who say there's no such thing as curse words. They say, well, if they're curse words, why is it in the Bible? The Bible must not be good because it has your so-called curse words in it. So they're going to play both sides. And they have this double-minded hypocrisy because they just hate the Bible. They hate Jesus and they hate the Lord himself. But they're just Bible words when used in proper context. I believe the devils, or the capital D devil, he conditions people in this way over years and generations in a lot of different ways. And subconsciously, it can turn some against the King James Bible. It's all by design. And let's draw back to this goat thing. You think being a goat is admirable, but really it's horrible to want to be that. So you want to be a goat. Do you know what that really means? That means you want to be on the left hand of the Lord. The enemy doesn't know that. That means you're going to be cast into darkness, bound hand and foot. That's what you want? You want to be prideful. You want to be better than the other guy. You want to be the dominator, the intimidator. Sounds real godly, huh? Like I say, I'm not against sports in and of themselves. But there's a line there. When I came out of a lot of the culture, the pop culture, yes, Jordan was my main idol. I would miss appointments. I would cancel engagements with friends. I said, hey man, Jordan and the Bulls is playing, so I need to stop whatever I'm doing or schedule around the games in order to watch. It was just a foolish waste of my time. And I regret that. I can't get that time back. Although I was highly entertained as a teenager or a young man. I spent so much time watching some little man jump around on the screen. And now I don't pay attention to what's going on in real time in terms of the sports world. But from a distance, from blurbs and clips and thumbnails, I see a newer generation doing the same thing with the current players, the most popular, the most promoted one being this LeBron person. And I made a point some years ago on these platforms or these messages that someone was inspired to call him King James. And this inspiration, and that's a loaded or deep word when you get into the etymology or history of it, the inspiration to call him that means that when you type in quote unquote King James, you're going to get some Bible results, but you'll just as likely get something about the historical King James being a sodomite who laid around with other men. Google wants you to think about that alongside thinking about the Bible. You think that's an accident? And of course, LeBron James is going to be included in there as well, King James, because that's his nickname. Go check it and see it for yourself what results you're going to see. It's all meant to divert some attention from the Bible itself and give mockers reason to reject that book because LeBron is the chosen one, like Jesus. Like you see these poses that these athletes throw up. The entertainers, they love to throw up the crucifixion pose. I know some real Christians who do this as well. And it's like a victory pose, the position that Jesus Christ was in at that moment. And I understand most people, they don't consider what I'm saying here. This is not putting you down if you go hiking and get to the top of the mountain and then you get somebody to take a photo of you standing on a big rock up there with your arms out in that way. I know you probably don't mean it in that way, but these actors, these famous people and such that you admire, they do know what they're doing. They do know they're mocking Jesus. They're mocking his murder there on the cross. You might post something on your social media and do that pose and you're not thinking of it in that way. I understand. But the major players on what we call the world stage, they know. That people even call this LeBron person a Christian. You see his sons wearing these ostentatious, very visible necklaces with crosses on them, and they seem relatively humble. So you're meant to make that connection. But have you ever heard him or anyone in that family give the gospel? You ever heard LeBron give a testimony of how he was saved? I'm not talking about generic spiritual talk. I mean specifically pointing to Jesus Christ as the way, the truth, and the life. Have you seen it? I would love for you to pass me the video or article where you've seen that. If it's out there, it's been well covered up. I mean, just the way he talks and acts in public. Never mind what happens in private. I just don't believe it's there. I don't believe he's a believer. He's not talking about Jesus as God in an honorable way. He never has he? He's not trying to get people saved with his platform and status. He's normally glorifying and justifying himself, or what some people might call whining. I don't know. He calls himself the GOAT or says he feels like the GOAT or however he phrased it. If he's saved, he's a baby Christian still on milk, as far as knowing what the Bible says. And I doubt he has a pastor, or if he does, his pastor is incompetent. And don't even mention Jordan, because we already know he's lost. Jordan has good qualities as a leader. He's obviously somebody who has worked diligently. He's a measured person. He's a thoughtful, intelligent man. And he's somebody who did respect authority and such things. Those are good characteristics of a person. But he's over 60 now, I think, and most of his life in the public eye, and you've never heard him talk about being a Christian. It's not there. But with LeBron, somehow there's still a question hanging. Is he a believer or not? I don't believe he is. I believe he's lost, and he's perpetrating to bring professing Christians into the wicked entertainment loop, like he and many others like him. They're going to wear the cross, they're going to tat it on their flesh, and they're going to speak in abstract spiritual terms to draw unsuspecting believers.
So they're going to watch the games and they're going to feel like they're supporting a Christian. He's a Hollywood Christian. That means he's an actor when it comes to that. I believe the enemy's laughing in our face about all of this. He wants us to be idolaters and he wants us to call ourselves goats. It's like me. If I'm walking around saying, I want to be a goat daddy and husband. I want to be a goat mechanic when it's oil change time. I want to be a goat cook when I'm frying up eggs for my kids. It's just more mockery. If you ever hear me talk like that, you know I've lost my mind. People are largely okay with the mockery. They're going to say things like, it's just a joke, man, or, it's not that serious, man. You're going to be okay. But on the other side of it, I can't say anything other than supportive vomit about the perverts out there. So if I say what the Bible says about them and what lost people do and what they push on us, now it's not funny now. So I can't say it's just a joke. It's not a joke anyway, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm supposed to be quiet. It's not funny now, right? And when I point all this stuff out, overwhelmingly, people are going to brush it off. They don't fear the Lord. They think they can talk any kind of way and he's not listening, or he's just going to forget anything, everything. They don't fear God. Whether you're talking about fear in the terms of reverence and respect or actual fear that God is in total control, it's not there for them, most people. Control. You and I really have none. God has all the control, and Jesus is the greatest.